Sumire was the exclusive unit for the 1-year anniversary for the JP server for Guardian Tales, and she definitely is a really fun unit for me because I like how fast-paced her gameplay is and how she can be really flexible in the various arena maps. At the same time, she's definitely powerful enough within the story to take down the legendary Archfiend together with Akayuki, as well as having the bot to slay any man in existence. However, is she really that powerful in the actual gameplay itself? Let us take a look at how worthy is Kunoichi Sumire potentially. So, Sumire's story is actually really long, but I'll try to summarize as much as possible within 5 pointers to let you guys better understand how her story works out together with Akayuki and Aoyuki, which could possibly be a future character in the game. So, Sumire is Oni, which is a half human and demon, and she was actually deemed as a cursed child on birth and was chased out of the village together with her mum. Eventually, a sorcerer, which is actually, I think, Akayuki and Aoyuki's master, took Sumire into his or her care to use her power as a call for a spell, which eventually failed, and then, she actually died from it, and Sumire was left in the wild in a box, and this was before the short story period. So afterwards, right, it was revealed in the short story that she was eventually saved by Akayuki and Aoyuki, and she learned various things from martial arts to mystics arts from the two of them, and the relationship between the two of them became much more than just a disciple and master's relationship. However, this will also spell disaster for them moving forward, as Sumire could not bear to think of parting with her masters during her final graduation test with the Archfiend, which resulted in a grave mistake by her and caused the sealing of Akayuki through the spell of petrification by the Archfiend. Despite the painful loss of Akayuki for both Aoyuki and Sumire, she continued to venture on her journey to hone her skills and help people along her journey. And hundreds of years has passed, and she eventually amassed a following known as the Faith of the Ninja, as she accepted and taught people whom she saved and admire her along the way. Now, eventually moving forward to present day when Akayuki was unsealed, Sumire became even more overprotective for her masters as she was afraid to lose her, and she could be seen tagging along to Akayuki no matter where she went. So moving forward after today's How Worthy video, I'll be removing the stats ranking portion for the characters for a few simple reasons. So number one, firstly is that the character rankings for the stats itself, initially when the pool of heroes were relatively small, it was quite important to see which characters were more powerful than others in terms of just looking at their stats numbers. But moving forward, I think the kit of the characters matter more and more, right? Having more sub abilities and having multi-attacking mechanics, having a really good weapon skill and a lot of different factors will make the character feasible in various ways. So the relative importance of looking at the ranking for the stats is not as high as it is in the past. And number two, there's just a lot of changes along the way for the stats numbers. They update the different stats for various characters to make sure that characters remain relevant, and this results in a lot of change in very short periods of time. So it's very hard for me to actually keep track manually. Like, I do not have the numbers from the Kakao site, with regards to the stats ranking. I actually keep track of the stats based on a manual Excel sheet. So it got kind of cumbersome, it got really troublesome, and since the relevance is not as high, I'm gonna remove this portion out of the video. But nonetheless, I'll still be analyzing the character stats to see how the character will work out in the various compartments. Is it a good offense unit or is it a good defensive unit, and how will it fare in general compared to the general hero population? Now, if you look at the stat line itself, right, I think Sumire has a really decent stat line, having a really high attack. I think at least top 15, right, somewhere around the Hana Zelos range at 1214, and a 43,291 HP, which is also really high, really very decent for a warrior unit. So she's able to go in and sort of have decent survivability because she's also a claw user with 216 defense. So in general, her stat line is really good, very decent for arena unit, right? She can go in, survive, and then try to abuse her mobility in terms of killing the enemy. So that's one thing that's really good about her. And then for her party buff, right, she is crit hit chance plus 40%, pretty standard, one of the most powerful buff in the game right now, with a 5% shield increase on battle start, as well as a 8% damage boost to range damage dealers. So units such as your Clara, your units such as Lina, your units such as Lorraine, they're all really weak against her in a way. But then again, like, this part is a good thing for her, but at the same time, not that good of thing for her, which I'll talk about later with regards to the Colosseum side. And lastly, she also has a skill damage plus 5%. So overall, her stats numbers in terms of the stat lines as well as the additional ability is pretty stacked. Really good unit just off the stat line portion. So her normal attack is a really straightforward piercing attack, which allows her to perform the different slashes in quick succession, and then ending off the final attack with a throwing of the explosive tag. So she has a bit of melee and a bit of range just off the normal attack. But what's so special about this normal attack is the targeting mechanics within the AI controlled portion. So if the party leader is a ranged damage dealer, Sumire will actually go after the party leader first. Other than that, she also has a targeting priority for ranged units as well as enemies that are further away from her within AI controlled settings. So this will most likely be used in Amazon as well as Colosseum the most. So this is a pretty unique targeting mechanic. So if you guys haven't realized by now, right, units with this kind of target this unit first mechanic, such as Sohi, such as Parvati, they are seeing more use within Colosseum itself. So if the meta favors her, then this will make Sumire an amazing Colosseum unit as well, because you can use her on the offensive teams to go after basic teams in defensive settings. So that's one thing good about her normal attack. Then for the secondary ability, is really straightforward. She generates a shadow clone, which increases her damage output, and she can generate up to 2 shadow clones with her EX weapon, which will boost her damage output further and increases her damage reduction. Now the chain skill is really straightforward. Basically, she summons the apparitions of Akayuki and Aoyuki to inflict 350% melee damage on the enemy. And the special ability is also really straightforward. Whenever she uses her shadow clone technique, she has an increased movement speed by 20% for 5 seconds, and the damage taken by her decreases by 15% for each clone she summons. So she can up to a total of a 30% damage reduction as well as a 20% movement speed boost whenever she has her 2 clones active. Now, Sumire's Claw is a really important EX weapon for her because it gives her a lot of stats. Number 1, you have 18% crit chance, and you have a lot of defensive stats with up to 18% defense boost and 20% HP boost. So quite a bit of defensive stat there. And on top of that, right, it also increases her clone's lasting time by 5 seconds, making her damage reduction last longer, and it increases the attack by 5 seconds for that duration as well for Sumire. So overall, really important. And the most important part is actually her ability to keep a maximum of 2 clones. So if you do not use her EX weapon, you can only use 1 clone, which is 15% damage reduction. But if you can use 2 clones, right, that's another 15% damage reduction. So this is really massive, and that's why you really need her EX weapon to make her work. So lastly, her EX weapon skill is Black Flame Circle. Really straightforward one, where she performs the different hand signs where you see the elemental effect, and then she will throw it at the enemy. So it's a range weapon skill which will require about 2 to 3 weapon skills to fully chain your enemy with a decent cooldown regen time and a decent 250% DPS. Now moving towards the Colosseum side, despite her having an amazing targeting mechanics which could make her really good in the game mode, she's not really strong on her release, simply due to how powerful the light element is within Colosseum itself. So the likes of Future Princess, the likes of Gabrielle, the likes of Eleanor, the likes of Mark 99, they are all still around, really prevalent, and people use them both offensively and defensively. So Sumire do not have the space to penetrate this light heavy meta right now. But moving forward, if in the future, like if she has a really strong basic meta to counter, then she might be able to rise up from the ashes, and you can use her in various team setups because her party buff is really flexible, crit chance, and her kit is very good to target all the range units that just hides at the back and then, you know, shoot your team down. But right now it's just due to the elemental problem. That's why you probably won't see her being used on the spot when she's released to the game itself. Now moving towards Arena, I think Sumire is amazing, right? She fits into many different team setups, melee teams, melee crit teams, your defensive crit teams. You can even try to fit her in dark teams and she will probably also work there. Because of her omnipotent nature of the Crit Chance party buff, she's really flexible in team building. And on top of that, she's a unit with mobility, decent stat lines, as well as really fast targeting mechanics, which makes her an amazing arena unit as a whole. So you can actually play kiting with her, running around, abusing your weapon skills, or you can dogfight with her whenever you have maximum clones up to maximize your DPS and damage reduction when you fight your opponent. So overall, she's an amazing unit. She has a good answer to the ever so prevalent arena in arena, and this makes her usability even better, and you can encounter more good matchups in most cases. Thus, I'll say that Sumire is pretty meta in arena just off her initial release within Guardian Tales global server. So the previous unit, Andreas, is not so good in PvP but really amazing in PvE contents. Whereas Sumire, she's amazing in PvP contents but not as good in terms of PvE. Because her kit is very selfish, she buffs herself, she deals more damage herself, she makes her clone last longer, but she does not provide enough utility for the team in any way, which makes her less desirable for contents, which requires massive team damage. So your raid, your conquest, she's not very good there. And she's also a very single target based unit, which means that she's not good in terms of clearing monsters fast enough in the likes of Expedition, nor co-op or defensive co-op. So that's where she's not as attractive in. So she does have a massive damage potential with a unique targeting mechanics, which means that she might have a specific niche in some PvE contents in the future, which requires that part of the targeting mechanics of her kit. So she's slightly above average at best in terms of PvE contents for myself. Below are some reasons to pull or invest in Kunoichi Sumire. So how worthy is Sumire potentially? I think she's a pretty fun arena unit in my take, as I like her playstyle a lot, even though it might not be the most creative mechanics there is released to Guardian Tales, right? But I'll say that it's a definitely feasible unit in terms of the PvP side of Guardian Tales. Although I did mention that Sumire might not be that good in PvE, she is still very decent in terms of dealing damage, so you can definitely still use her for damage delivery purposes, despite her not being the best choice, right? She's a good choice, but not the best one there is if you want to use a unit that deals damage. But one thing that I think will make her shine moving forward or in the future will definitely be her targeting mechanics, as it has already been proven by the likes of Parvati and Sohi time and again in Colosseum. So you can definitely still pull for her for Colosseum purposes to prepare yourself to counter basic team setups in the future. And lastly, I wonder who will oppose to having a powerful ninja with an alluring figure and stealthy skill set in your team. So yep, that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you very much everybody for tuning in. Do let me know down in the comment section below if you will pull for Sumire in the upcoming release in Guardian Tales global server. Thank you very much for watching. Do remember to like and subscribe in order to see more videos from the channel. I'll see you guys again in my next video. Bye guys!